was very strong, and pace was strong too. I felt
probably a bit higher than than them, but which helped me to get in the front, but very suboptimal anyway. I thought I would end up P8, P9, but then I started and I saw everybody had issues, and I had the one with the least issues, which at the end is what counts. But there's a lot of margin to improve those starts. It was very suboptimal, I think, for everybody. We kind of expected a messy start, and then I think on top of that as well, we are such on a fine line before getting everything right on the PUIs, and the lights off were very, very, very quick. So I think it surprised on top of that everybody, and and made it even more critical. So it was kind of crazy.
And were you very pleased with your pace relative to the Mercedes today?
Very pleased is maybe a big word, but I am positively surprised for sure after qualifying yesterday. I think yesterday for sure we were not in our optimum window, but we are still very, very far off the Mercedes in qualifying. In the race though, we seem to be closer. Doesn't mean we are the fastest car, I don't think we were, but we are a bit more reasonably behind. So lots of work to be done, and I think this championship anyway will be won by development and upgrades, and for that we need to be on it.
All right, very well done to you. Let's now open this to the floor, please. Who's got our first question?
Oliver Van Brunswick, Raw Sports. A question to all three of you. Lando, in the pen, described the overtake button as creating artificial racing. You all had a good amount of wheel-to-wheel combat. Do you think, or do you like the system, or do you think it was, detrimental to some of the racing action?
It's different. It's definitely different. But I think the interesting thing with these regs is every track we go to, they're not always going to be like this. We're going to Shanghai next, where you've got one big long straight, so the majority of drivers will be using their energy on that one straight. You don't need to divide it up between four like you do here in Melbourne. So everyone's very quick to criticize when we've had the best cars and the least tyre degradation, and when we've been happiest, everyone moans the racing's rubbish. Now drivers aren't perfectly happy, and everyone said it was an amazing race. So
anything to add?
No, I think in a track like this, the overtake was incredibly powerful, and you could overtake. It created a lot of action, especially in the first few laps of the race. So I think in this kind of track there will be a lot of action. In some other track, maybe a bit less, but I think today was much better than what we all anticipated. So I think, as George said, we need to just wait a few more races before actually commenting on this new regulation.
I kind of agree. I just think that it will definitely change the way we go about racing and overtaking. Before it was more about who is the bravest at braking the latest. Maybe now there's a bit more of a strategic mind behind every move you make, because it's big time after that, and so you kind of always try and think multiple steps ahead to try and end up eventually.
Michael Butterworth, Xinhua News Agency. George, you mentioned Shanghai briefly just there, and obviously we've had people say that Melbourne, for one or two reasons, is a little bit of an outlier.
That much, to be honest, but it would just change how we go racing and how much variability there is in the deployment.
Okay, next one.
Phil Duncan, PA. To George, just following on from those, the question about Lando and his comments. Obviously, yesterday he said as well, they've gone from the best ever cars to drive to the worst. Is that just sour grapes from him because McLaren aren't where they were and you guys have got a big advantage?
Yeah, well, he's always... Yeah. I don't know. If he was winning, I don't think he'd be saying the same. We weren't happy with how stiff the cars were last year, and there was no porpoising, even though we watched their car and they were porpoising. So, everyone's always going, looking to the truth is last year we had the same engine as them, and McLaren did a better job than us, and they beat us. Now McLaren have got the same engine as us, the same as Williams, and the same as Alpine, and so far we've done a better job than them. So that's just how the game goes.
Next one.
Isabel from 4ZZZ. What did we learn from this weekend, and what can we bring to Shanghai next week, especially it being a sprint race? Have we learned anything about the cars, about you as drivers or as the team?
Well, I think for everyone was a massive learning. For the first time we went racing. We did the first proper weekend, of course. But it should be a much more straightforward race in terms of how you deploy the energy. This race was probably the hardest race to start the season because it's just so difficult on energy with so many straights one after the other. So yeah, but I think it was massive learning for us driver, for the team, also for the team to understand where to push development of the car, because this year the rate of development is going to be massive, and it's going to be important to not put any wrong step because the situation can flip very quickly.
Learnings?
I mean, many learnings, but as Kimi said, I think looking at Shanghai, I think it's going to be super crucial to be straight on top of everything, which will be extremely difficult. I mean, that's what we've tried to do for this weekend, and even coming the race, we were not on top of everything. So to have a sprint race so early on in a season like this will be a huge challenge for everybody. It's going to be very tricky.
I think having experienced the race today and battling, the only thing I would request from the FIA is that with the straight mode, the front wing doesn't drop as aggressively. When we open straight mode, we will have lots of understeer, and when I was behind Charles and I was trying to duck out of his slipstream, it was like my front wing wasn't working. So I think from a safety aspect, that would make the racing safer, better. I don't see a downside of doing it.
Okay, thanks all. Next one.
Stuart Bell, AP. This is to Charles. What were your thoughts of Ferrari not pitting you under the virtual safety car?
I don't regret it. It was a wanted and conscious choice. Looking at from FP1 to now, there's been at every session a car that was stopped, at least one car. We knew that there were very high chances that this was not going to be the only VSC of the race, and so we thought that it was better for us to maybe wait for another one, and that's always a gamble. Of course, we didn't know that this will happen. Reality is we've had other VSC after, and one which was particularly well placed, but unfortunately for this one, for us the pit entry was closed and we couldn't take it. So we were a little bit unlucky on that side, but it was a conscious choice again, and I don't really regret it.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Any more? No more? We'll leave it there. Very well done, gentlemen. See you next week. Thank you.
It was okay. Of course, we also have quite a bit more pace than the midfield, so I just needed to clear that clean, which we did. I learned a lot, of course, also with the battles and how to use the battery and stuff. So that was, I think, quite a positive thing. And then at one point I was quite by myself, just settling in. And I think, the two hard compounds today didn't really work for us. So a lot of degradation, a lot of graining, and that made me then, of course, do a two-stop.
Just on the gap to the top, Mercedes and Ferrari, just quite a big one. What do you kind of reflect on that? How big is that? How tough is that?
Yeah, I just grained way too quickly. That's why we had to then pit again for new tires.
But in terms of the gap to Mercedes and Ferrari, it's still there, isn't it? Are you concerned about how big it is at the minute, or do you think it's more circuit specific?
Concerned. I mean, I can be concerned about it, but it's not going to change anything, right? So I'm not concerned about it. We just work as a team to try and close that gap, and step by step, of course, hopefully we can be more competitive.
All right, thanks, Max. Cheers.
Yeah, it was a combination of bad factors, so obviously just very disappointed.
How much obviously does it hurt being your home race as well? So many fans out here for you, and you hadn't even got the chance to start the race.
Yeah, a lot. It's a shame. I mean, things like that shouldn't be happening anywhere. But yeah, especially at my home race, it's obviously even more disappointing.
Hard luck, Oscar. Thanks. How pleased are you with the Ferraris to the way that you managed it throughout the rest of it?
Well, it kind of was the race that we were anticipating, like difficult start, potentially yo-yoing with the overtakes. I knew we had the car pace, so I probably left a bit more margin while fighting Charles. And he was, quite aggressive in some of the defensive manoeuvres, but at the end of the day, I think we created a really good race for you guys watching at home. As challenging as it was still fun from within the cockpit, and maybe these new regs aren't as bad as everyone's making out.
Obviously, there's a lot of expectation on you guys through pre-season. You've delivered on what you wanted to achieve here. How proud are you of the way that you've delivered and the team as well?
No, really proud. I think it's just been a clean weekend. Obviously, today was slightly more challenging, but I think when the pace we saw Ferrari was more like what we were anticipating and not what we saw in qualifying. So I don't know what happened with the other teams in qualifying. That pace difference wasn't what anybody was expecting. However, what we saw Ferrari today, they're definitely in the mix.
Great stuff.
Thank you.